Okay.
Good evening. This is the May 19th St. Charles County Council meeting. First item on the agenda is a closed meeting. Is there a motion to go into closed meeting?
Motion made.
Is there a second?
I'm sorry, you have to say I make a motion to go into closed.
I will read it. I would like to make a motion to go into closed meeting per state statute RSMO 610.021, 1 and 2.
Second.
Okay, and then
Call
roll
the
call.
roll.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam? Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Motion is made and approved. We'll go into closed session at this time. go back into open meeting.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, sorry, this ran a little bit later than we thought. So, moving on then to the agenda tonight. First item is our invocation, and we're here to welcome Pastor Heinrich from Emmanuel Lutheran. Is that correct? Right. Hi, how are you? I understand you have kind of a unique perspective on things.
I do. I'm hard of hearing myself, and so with all my hearing aids, and so that's why I wear my hat. It helps me to hear people, and I sign everything, so I work with deaf people. I've worked in all over the U.S. with deaf people and many countries internationally, and so that's why so tonight when we do the prayer, I would like to share and sign it also.
Absolutely.
If we could do it that way. So normally you probably close your eyes and bow your heads, but you don't have to do that tonight. You can watch as we sign it. That'll be fine. And I thank you for putting captioning on the council minutes also when they're all done. So I appreciate that too.
Thank you for being here. Is there anyone who does have a hearing issue, who's hard of hearing, who would like to be able to move to where you can see Pastor Heinrich's invocation? Okay, hearing none, then everyone please stand.
Let's pray. Father in heaven, we give you thanks because you are the one who gives us the love and care for this life. We thank you for the people who serve on this council. We ask that you would give them wisdom and strength as they serve your people, but also, Lord, bless the people who help them, the clerks, the sheriffs, all the people involved to make this process happen. Lord, give everybody here your peace and your wisdom and your understanding, and most importantly, your love for each other. As we begin tonight, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor. We'll now have Pledge of Allegiance. Joe Brazel, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. We'll have the roll called in.
Councilmember Joe Cronin.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brazel.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Elam. Councilmember Nancy Schneider.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember John White.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a public presentation by the Apraxia Awareness Proclamation. Is someone here on that this evening? Good evening. Why don't you come up to the podium? You're being joined by our county executive, Steve Ellman.
Come on up right here.
And your little friends as well.
Would you like to introduce them first before I read
Yeah.
this?
Would you introduce yourself as well as the children?
Yes, my name is Angie Fraunhofer, and we're from St. Peter's. And then this is my son who's nervous. His name is Chase.
Hi,
and
Chase.
He has apraxia of speech. It's a neurological condition which impacts something that comes very normal to everybody else is talking. He has to go through therapies to how to put his tongue in the right position and how to do the mouthing movements to talk. And then this is my daughter, Alyssa, and then
Hi,
my
Alyssa.
oldest son, John.
Hi, guys. How are you? Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, Mr. Ellman.
Yeah, let me walk up here and read this proclamation. Whereas May 14, 2022 marks the Childhood Apraxia of Speech Day, during which awareness will be raised throughout St. Charles County about childhood apraxia of speech, an extremely challenging speech disorder that affects 1 in 1,000 children. Whereas childhood apraxia of speech, CAS, causes children to have significant difficulty learning to speak and is among the most severe speech deficits in children. And whereas the act of learning to speak comes effortlessly to most children, those with apraxia require early, appropriate, and intensive speech therapy, often for many years, to learn to speak. And whereas without appropriate speech therapy intervention, children with apraxia will have diminished communication skills, but are also placed at high risk for secondary impacts in reading, writing, spelling, and other school-related skills. And whereas that such primary and secondary impacts diminish future independence and employment opportunities and challenge the ability to become productive, contributing citizens, if not resolved or improved. And whereas public awareness about childhood apraxia of speech in St. Charles County is essential for families of children with this neurological disorder and the professionals who support them to achieve the needed services for those learning to use their own voice. And whereas our highest respect goes to these children as well as their families for their effort, determination, and resilience in the face of such obstacles. And whereas Apraxia Kids is the leading nonprofit that strengthens the support system in the lives of children with apraxia of speech. Now further be it proclaimed that I, Steve Ellman, St. Charles County Executive, on behalf of St. Charles County Government, do hereby proclaim May 14, 2022 as Apraxia Awareness Day.
Congratulations. Would you like to get a photo, or did we already do that? Is there someone here who could do a photo? Oh, you got one? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for being here with your beautiful children. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is conditional use permits, bill for introduction, bill number 5061.
Bill number 5061, requested by Michael Hobart, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-01 for custom butchering to Anthony Brinker and Tammy L. Brinker, property owners, and Tony's Processing LLC, applicant.
Mr. Brazel, I think you led some discussion about this earlier. Do you want to?
Well, we made the zoning so he could have his shop, and we all voted in favor of that.
Yeah.
So I think this is it's...
Pretty much cut and
Yeah, no,
dry.
everybody's excited about him maintaining his butcher shop.
It was a unanimous vote at Planning and
It
Zoning.
was. Okay, very good. Okay, is there anyone who wishes to speak on
Council Chair,
this matter?
Excuse me just a minute. This is where we introduce Robert Myers and swear him in, and he explains the...
Since everybody was so
Conditional use
agreeable, Mr. Myers, I didn't know if we needed to hear from you or not. I apologize. Come on up, and I'll swear you in, and you can give us your report.
Okay,
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, Mr.
Hi.
Myers.
My name is Robert Myers, Planning and Zoning Division Director. Briefly, approval of this bill would authorize a conditional use permit for custom butchering of livestock and game. And as you probably remember, until a few months ago, or until very recently, the county zoning regulations had sort of an all or nothing approach in terms of butchering. Either you were a livestock yard and a meatpacking plant with 250 employees, or you were a farm family, you were butchering for your own purposes on the farm, but there was no in between. So recognizing the fact that the federal and state laws have a specific category for what's called custom butchering, this would recognize this particular trade and business and place it within this has been placed within the zoning ordinance. And so now we have before us our first application for custom butchering, which is essentially someone on a per order basis. They come to the operator, the custom butcher, and ask them to butcher livestock or game on their behalf. There's no buying or selling of meat. There's no wholesale or retail trade. The proposed location is on 23 acres in the Matson unincorporated area. There's no sanitary sewer service to this property, so that will be handled with an on-site sewage disposal system. What's interesting about this application is they're using all existing buildings and an existing livestock pen. So from the outside, it's not going to look any different. There's a small parking area set aside for customers, but other than that, from the outside, this is going to look really the same as what's there currently. The equipment proposed will be limited to one saw and one grinder, so there's not much chance of having land use impacts on neighbors much different than what you could have currently under the agricultural zoning. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this at their April 20th meeting, and following which, holding a public hearing, they recommended 9 in favor and 0 against. And county staff likewise recommends approval. as conforming to the conditional use permit criteria that are referred to you in the memo that's part of your packet.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Myers? Does the applicant wish to be heard this evening?
I think we were well heard the other day. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any questions then for staff or the applicant by any council members? Okay, hearing none, this will then conclude the
We have one
public
public
comment portion on this conditional use permit.
Arnie Dienoff.
Oh, Mr. Dienhoff, excuse me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overlook you.
Happens all the time. Thank you very much, council members. My name is Arnie C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate. I just wanted to go over a few things. Some were spoken, and so I might be a little bit repetitive here. But at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, there was zero opposition. There were no voiced opposition or any letters of concern that was received by the Planning and Zoning Department. We have many health department regulations that will cover this type of facility. To include the State Department of Natural Resources, which has a whole book from here to the jail of regulations that these gentlemen will be bound by. Our codified code, our county codified code and code enforcement will be held to a strict adherence of the code. As was stated, there will be a sewage disposal system. And as you all know, this area is very rural. It's very heritage related. There's a lot of wildlife in this region of our southern part of the county. And we all hunt, we all enjoy hunting, and I believe that this type of service is needed in this part of the county. And for those reasons, I would ask the county council to unanimously follow through with the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commissioners, which overwhelmingly, I believe without they were all yes votes, no votes, voted to recommend approval. Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Dienhoff? Okay, if there are no other comments or speakers, then this will conclude the public comment portion of the conditional use permit, and it will be voted on at the next council meeting, which is the 23rd.
Tuesday, May the 31st.
Okay.
Tuesday, May the 30th, because of
May-
the holiday. It's going on
Okay.
Tuesday.
I didn't know if we were going to do it the Monday before or the Tuesday after. Okay, all right, very good, thank you. Moving on then to public comments.
Oral report.
I
Oral
noticed,
report from-
I'm sorry?
Oral report from the county executive? No, that's public comments. I'm sorry.
Okay, public comments. I noticed that we have quite a few speaker cards. Many of them appear to be on the same general topic, but they were worded so that most of them said something slightly different. So we'll go ahead and take up the speakers on these issues. There are 3 speakers in favor of any particular issue and 3 speakers against are allowed. We are going to strictly enforce the clock, which is a 3-minute timer. Once your 3 minutes are up, I'll strike the gavel, let you know. Thank you for your comments, and we'll move on. We have quite a few, as I said, this evening. First speaker.
Linda Rance.
Are we doing these by topic? Claire, are we doing them by topic?
Yes, we'll start with canvassing.
Yeah, okay, all right. Ma'am, please introduce yourself and then proceed with your comments.
Thank you. My name is Linda Rance, and I am one of about 200 volunteers known as Missouri Canvassers. Since last November, we have canvassed in nearly 25 counties. Our first report was published last week and delivered to the state legislature. A copy has been provided to each of you. We met with the Secretary of State in November 2021, and by January 2022, we had delivered the names of about 340 suspected phantom and lost votes. 100 of the 340 were from St. Charles County. Our second meeting with Mr. Ashcroft was April 20th. We now have more than 1,100 suspected phantom votes, lost votes, and ghost registrations, 280 of which are from St. Charles County. At our April meeting, Secretary Ashcroft asked for our help to get our data subpoenaed from him by the state legislature. He said he believes, quote, they have the authority if they want to provide it to the general public in whatever form they want, end quote. Mr. Ashcroft said he would not fight the subpoena. Ask yourselves, why does the Secretary of State want the general public to see our canvassing results? An issue we have found to be detrimental to Missouri is the 6-month rule. It is impossible to determine exactly who voted in any Missouri election because of a Missouri law allowing 6 months for county clerks to make their report. The state cannot provide a list of everyone who voted in an election, and Mr. Ashcroft has twice concurred with our assessment. His advice was to try the counties. We sent sunshine requests in January to 10 counties. We asked for an unaltered list of the names of the voters who had cast those ballots in the November 2020 election and how many of the total were military and overseas ballots. 5 counties could not produce an unaltered list. 3 counties sent altered lists, and 1 county asked for $2,000 to begin to recreate the voter logs. The 10th county, St. Charles, did not reply to the original sunshine request, nor to a follow-up sent on March 11th. To repeat, it is impossible to obtain a complete unaltered list of the voters who cast ballots in any Missouri election. We are greatly concerned with the lack of chain of custody of military and overseas ballots because the process for receiving these ballots makes it too easy to steal or alter the votes of those serving in the military or living abroad. But because information in voter rolls about this is withheld from us, we cannot verify these ballots. I respectfully suggest that if you are considering the certification of any election for which doubts of absentee, military, or overseas ballots have been raised, you take time to review our report and take a closer look at these particular ballots. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Andrew Polachek.
I'm sorry, did you hear the name? Okay.
Andrew Polachek.
Yeah. Yes, sir, proceed.
My name is Andrew Polachek, also with Missouri Canvassers. In our April 20th meeting, the Secretary of State told us, quote, "I think that our rolls are cleaner than they used to be, but our rolls are never going to be spotless, not with the lag time, not with the fact that there are states that just won't share data, so we can't get people cleared off," unquote. That's one viewpoint. But we have found that the rate of inflation in Missouri's voter rolls is far more serious. According to the U.S. Census data in Missouri voter rolls, Missouri had a 91% voter registration rate in 2020. The average rate is 70%. Missouri was 21% above the national average in 2020. The consequences of dirty or inflated rolls are that they expose our election systems to potential fraud. When we delivered our report to the Capitol last week, we canvassed the representatives and senators. This is Missouri. One senator purchased his home over 20 years ago. Voter rolls show that at the time of the November 2020 election, a person who, according to the senator, did not reside at the senator's home was nonetheless listed as a registered voter there. No vote was cast, so this would be considered a ghost registration. The name and birth date of the ghost appears to be the child of a previous owner from 20 years ago. Registration date of the ghost is 2000, and the only votes cast by this person were 2000 and 2001. Our research shows that this person has been voting in Texas since 2008. Interestingly, this ghost was dropped from the Missouri voter rolls just before we started canvassing. After 20 years, why and who did this? We are continuing our investigation. If there's no vote, does it matter if people are on the rolls who no longer reside at an address? Let's look at some result numbers. Our canvassing approach was targeted using data analysis to identify addresses with potential voting anomalies. We visited about 4,900 addresses and resolved 2,800. That means either they spoke with us, refused to participate, or there were reasons we could not access the address. Of those, nearly 700, or 25%, resulted in suspected voting irregularities, with the total number of individual issues being 1,100. In St. Charles County's voter registration rate in 2020, it was 94%. As a reminder, the average is 70% throughout the nation. We resolved 639 addresses in the county, and 180 had issues. That's 28%. The total individual irregularities is 280. Working with other states, we found that as many as 79,000 registered voters who moved out of the state prior to 2020 were still on Missouri's rolls at the time of the 2020 election, and 4,700 of those had votes recorded for them in the 2020 election. Ghost registrations and these out-of-state votes are the ones most likely to be used to abuse the absentee voting system and commit voting fraud. In contested elections, these should raise the greatest concern and be the first to be audited as opposed to recount. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next
Dan White.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I'm also with the Missouri Canvassers. My name is Dan White. A person we will call Ricky is registered to vote in Missouri at a St. Charles address. Ricky moved overseas in 1985. A vote is recorded for him in the November 2020 election. It is the only vote ever recorded for him in Missouri. Overseas voters are required to renew their voting status every year or so. We have questions about Ricky's registration and his vote, but this information is not readily available to us. Another example of an overseas voter and the inability to canvass and validate is Cindy. The canvasser spoke to the resident who has owned a home in St. Charles County since 2015. Cindy is registered to vote at this address. Prior to 2020, Cindy's only vote in Missouri was in 1992, the year she turned 18. Now 46 years old and living overseas, Cindy was registered to vote in Missouri in 2020, and then a vote was cast in her name in the 2020 election. Why suddenly is Cindy registering as an overseas voter? Did someone register in her name? We would like to know how officials verify that an email application is coming from the voter and how signatures are verified when ballots are received. Missouri uses the U.S. Postal Service to conduct postcard canvassing. Literally, postcards are put in the mail, and decisions as to whether someone is living at an address are based on if the USPS does a return to sender. If the card doesn't come back, election officials assume the person lives there. Except even Mr. Ashcroft admits that the majority of cards are likely thrown away. Missouri canvassers relied on data scientists and analysts to guide our canvassing efforts. And rather than postcards, we knock on doors and speak citizen to citizen. It's the only way to validate information on the voter rolls. Some of our St. Charles County canvassing included Wentzville. Using voter data for the November 2020 election, our canvassers found in Wentzville 23 ghost registrations. This is the classic case of why voter rolls are inflated 20% or more. The 23 includes one person who died in 2019. We found 3 lost votes in Wentzville, voters who told our canvasser that they had voted, but no vote is recorded. And we identified 14 phantom votes, votes cast for someone who is not known or living at the address. This includes 2 stolen votes, voters who confirmed they did not vote, yet a vote was recorded for them. We checked the state's voter rolls as of April 1st, 2022, and all but one of these Wentzville ghosts and phantoms are still on the rolls 2 years later, including the deceased person. We hope that the city and county will seriously consider an audit, not a recount, of the ballots cast in the April 5th election.
Your
This
time
morning
is
we
up,
submitted-
sir. Thank you.
Regarding poll pads, John Baer.
Good evening, sir.
Hi, I'm John Baer, the guy who was turned in for voter fraud after exposing a poll pad flaw that allowed people to vote twice, once absentee and a second time in person on election day. I spoke of this at your last council meeting, and you voted to postpone election certification until tonight so Kurt Barr, our Director of Elections, could be here to answer questions. Thank you for that. Days later, in a TV news interview, Mr. Barr admitted there was a problem. It impacted about 300 voters that could have voted a second time. He told Channel 4, "We're still working with the vendor to see if we can figure out exactly what caused this issue." Well, a month has passed since the April 5th election, and we still don't have answers. We're told the election authority tests their systems prior to each election. Apparently not thoroughly enough. trained election judges had to discover this flaw on election day. Why didn't the poll pad flag those who had already voted absentee like their 100-page training manual said it should? In Augusta, after 6 bipartisan judges found this flaw, we called the election authority and described the problem in detail, but they didn't resolve it. So why didn't they take these poll pads out of service? They were used another 6 hours or so. Were any judges at the other 121 polling locations called to see if they experienced this same problem? And finally, do poll pads need Wi-Fi or a cellular signal to function properly? And if so, what encryption methods are used to prevent hacking into them? Finally, on a separate note, we are told that a free forensic audit was already offered to our county by Mike Lindell and Dr. Frank. They even offered to pay to replace our machines if there was concern they might be corrupted during the audit process. Mr. Barr declined that offer, yet he was happy to take $600,000 of Mark Zuckerbucks. So finally, based on numerous election integrity issues which have surfaced, I respectfully ask you, the council, to request an external, independent forensic audit of our equipment and our entire election process.
Next speaker.
Mary Ann Boatwright.
Thanks, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. Refusing to acknowledge a problem exists doesn't make it go away. Truth always comes out. We're not adversaries unless we're being stonewalled. We're engaged citizens doing what engaged citizens do, looking for answers. Were the poll pads purchased with CTCL, Center for Tech and Civic Life, or Zuckerberg grant money in the April elections? Was that the first election they were used? Were poll pads in Augusta April election purchased with Zuckerbucks or purchased prior? Which St. Charles County polling locations used poll pads purchased with Zuckerbucks during the April election? What kind of forensic audit was done on poll pads used in Augusta after April election to determine why they malfunctioned and ensure it doesn't happen again? What kind of forensic audit was done on all the other poll pads to determine if they malfunctioned? According to Dr. Douglas Frank, Mike Liddell did offer forensic testing machine to Director of Elections and offered a free forensic audit to identify anomalies. Apparently, Director had concerns it may corrupt equipment, and Mr. Liddell offered to replace every machine in office free of charge if that occurred. Offer was turned down and machine returned unused. Why were we uncomfortable accepting Mr. Lindell's offer of a free forensic audit, but were comfortable taking money from Mark Zuckerberg? Many 2020 swing states that took Zuckerbucks had strings attached and lost local control. Be curious enough to look at those reports. View 2000 Mules documentary and Rig, Zuckerberg plot to defeat Donald Trump. Both show compelling evidence of a billionaire's assault on free and fair elections by strategically infusing $400 million. We can do this the hard way or the easy way. We prefer to work with the council and the election authority to achieve election integrity. Otherwise, every citizen needs to research writ of mandamus. It can be filed without a lawyer against elected officials who refuse to do their lawful duty. Citizens file affidavits attached to the writ. If judge agrees, elected officials will be compelled to do their lawful duty. We need our constitutional sheriff back. Constitutional sheriff is the highest authority in the county and is duty-bound to protect and defend rights of the people, including investigating serious election irregularities. We need to flush out truth together. If citizens force it into the light alone, it will not be a good look for those standing in the way or on the sidelines. Based on numerous election integrity issues, St. Charles County citizens respectfully ask Council to request outside independent full forensic audit of election equipment and processes. Council, citizens, voters, taxpayers Candidates and all stakeholders need to be confident in the integrity of our elections and are asking for full transparency. Thank you.
Regarding voting freedoms, Judith Moorfield.
Good evening.
Good evening. My vote should count. My vote should be protected. My vote is a right and a privilege. Over the past 2 years, many of us have been rudely awakened to the fact that our votes have not counted or been protected as they should have been. Everyone in this room knows that voter fraud on a massive scale took place in 2020. But we also know now that voter fraud was introduced into our system years ago. Anyone who denies there is fraud at this point is either totally out of it, willfully ignorant, or complicit. And the electronic voting equipment is one of the many ways in which this fraud was introduced and has since expanded. It should be the express responsibility of those pushing this electronic equipment to prove that fraud cannot occur, but they are unable to do that. Getting rid of drop boxes and only using paper ballots is essential, but it doesn't stop there. The electronic tabulators can switch or delete our votes, and then our original ballot is destroyed, removing any chance of validating. Over $1 million spent on new voting equipment that we do not want. And now, to make matters worse, the election authority is going after election judges who put the e-books to the test themselves and discovered flaws, using our taxpayer money to file lawsuits against the people who are watching out for us and trying to protect our vote. How much tyranny, vindictiveness, and unaccountability are we supposed to tolerate? We, the people, are the ones you should be paying close attention to and serving. It took us a long time to wake up, but we aren't going back to sleep. Have you noticed attendance at these meetings have increased over the past 2 years? We will grow in numbers until you start listening to us. This is a conservative state by and large, but that is not being accurately reflected at the polls, and not because we aren't showing up. Our votes are being altered and stolen, and we're expected to keep silent and to trust our officials on this. It's like learning that a bunch of thieves are breaking into homes in the area, but the police are asking that we not lock or secure our doors. That is insane. Bottom line, get rid of the machines, drop the lawsuits against the judges, and start listening to our concerns, rather than dismissing them and trying to punish those who voice them. Fool us once, shame on you. Fool us twice, shame on us. And from the familiar words of an old song, we won't be fooled again. Please get rid of all this stuff. Let us go back to everything that is easier, simpler, and not expensive at all.
Okay, thank you.
And concerning certification of voting machines, Tracy Wellborn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. You may proceed. Oh, okay.
How do I start this? How do I start?
So we've got the Help America Vote Act, that was congressionally passed federal act. So codified now into law. 2002 was when it went into effect, it was passed in the Congress. That was, right after the whole Florida hanging Chad thing. So how it creates mandatory minimum standards for states to follow in several key areas of election administration and provides funding to those states for the standards. It was, designed to help upgrade the voting infrastructure, so to speak. And in the law passing, it also created this independent entity called the Election Assistance Commission, kind of like a committee, but a group, an entity that assists the states regarding capital compliance and distributing funds. It's also charged with creating the voting system guidelines and operating the federal government's first voting system certification program. So the HABA Act is then what established the EAC as an independent entity. You can see that. Standards board, board of advisors, a bunch of different things within there. I'll try not to get detailed unless needed, but an independent entity in the Law Insider Dictionary says that it's an entity that has a public purpose. That means it's supposed to serve us, I guess, because I'm a public person, right? Relating to the state or its citizens, or both. I say both. It's individually created by the state or is given by the state right to exist and conduct its affairs. In this case, it's a federal independent entity that's designed to serve all states. So here we have the ability of the EAC as an independent commission, independent entity, created to abide by law and do a lot of things on our behalf. So its ability, availability was there to accomplish the tasks that are set before it. The standards and rules of compliance that need to be maintained. And it's important to have just a minimum standards when we're all going to be buying all these $1 million systems and equipment across the counties in this country. All right, so we've got another thing that the EAC is supposed to do as someone that basically gives contractors the go-ahead to do what they do, is they are required to disseminate information to the public. And they're there to serve the public. And part of that is to post for us the things that they're doing. This is part of the HABA Act, which is codified into law, Section 206. And it says that through the internet, publish reports, and other methods. But the main way through the years that they have done what they're supposed to do, and their manual says they're supposed to do, is to disseminate to the public. And mostly, like I said, they do that through the internet. And there's rules and laws and other government implications that kind of highlight the importance. All right, so whenever you see these numbers here like this is always, unless I say different, going to be referring to this manual here, which is a EAC manual. Here you see the publication of these documents. The EAC will make these documents consistent with the requirements of federal law. Its policy to make the laboratory accreditation process, and that's most of what this slide share is about, the laboratory accreditation process, very clearly outlined in this manual, as open and public as possible. Any documents or portions thereof submitted under this program will be made available to the public, unless it's specifically protected from release. So that's good. The basic stuff should be there, right? This is private stuff. We've got this section of HABA also, in subtitle B, testing certification, recertification, and that by law was given to the EAC to do. So let's set up from the top down, voted by Congress. So the EAC then vets the laboratories that are recommended by the National Institutes of Standards and Technology that want to participate. That's good. That's some, first tier things that you have to do. And in this manual, like I said, every detail as to how to vet these laboratories is in there. So the accreditation process is laid out. Okay, so section 3 of this manual, you can see I've got some items clipped from there. And this chapter sets forth required steps that these laboratories, as they apply, called applicant laboratories, must perform. Notice the word must. They must do these things. It's not they don't want to. But in order to receive an EAC voting system test laboratory accreditation, the process generally includes an application form and receipt of NIST recommendations. So that's the technical part. That's the first, basic they got to do. And they have to, be invited. And then they have to do the same thing you do if you buy a house.
As you can see, we only have limited time to get through all this, and it's a lot of information. I suggest you look at these handouts. The accreditations for the EAC labs are invalid. They're not signed by the proper authority. I know that you have a draft that your auditor did.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Kim Shaughnessy?
If we had more than 3 minutes, we could probably make this slower, but since we don't, you have to kind of pay attention pretty quick. Unfortunately.
Are you the speaker, ma'am?
No, I'm just getting it up and ready for her.
Is it going to be that fast again? Because we couldn't hear any of that.
Well, you have it in front of you.
I know, but it's...
So we only have 3 minutes and this information has to get out. So
Some of the...
He's, yeah.
it's the law. It's the law that states, she's just reading that. So
Okay.
follow that.
All right, if we could get the speaker then to proceed. Okay.
Put that on.
That's pretty good. Swing a flag off.
Swing a flag off. This isn't working anymore.
Okay.
And each
Let's proceed, please.
accreditation of the labs, and those are published on the EAC's website. And each certificate, has that effective through date, which is expiration date according to the EAC's manual. In case you're ever looking at manuals, they've got several. This is the number that you want to see if you're searching behind you. Make sure that I'm not spreading anything out. This is important. I've got the link here to the manual. But the expiration and renewal of accreditation does state the grant of accreditation is valid for a period not to exceed 2 years. So
for VSTL's accreditation expires on the date annotated on the certificate of accreditation. So any emphasis in here is added, but that's for, section 3.8 of the manual. Here's a picture of what it looks like. So here's Wiley's last certificate. You can see effective through April 27, 2012. Later, we've got 2010 to 2012. Good, thumbs up, okay. And they even had one from 2007 through 2009. So let's look at Pro V&V.
You're not speaking.
Basically saying you guys are good, you look good, you got what we need. Over here, you can see that after they vote, they're going to update the EAC website and inform everyone of the decision, or issue the certificate, and they do reinforce their own rules, that the grant of accreditation is valid for a period of 2 years. And that labs renew their accreditation by submitting an application package. They don't just get to go, oh yeah, you come back and I'll just renew it. They can't do that. This right here says that, and they cite their manual. So they're basically pointing out that they follow the rules every 2 years. You guys got to submit the whole thing package again, go over this again, see you in 2 years. Here's how it goes.
Okay.
Oh, I yield my time.
This is supposed to be for speakers. You're playing something that was recorded. Ma'am, she's yielding her, okay, you're going to actually speak, though?
I'm going to
Okay.
actually speak.
All right,
Yep.
state your name, please.
My name's Allie Grave.
Did you sign a card?
Yep.
Okay,
I
go
did.
ahead.
So we received a draft we turned in all of these accreditations, all of the accreditations from NTS, formerly Wiley, SLI compliance, Pro V&V. None of the accreditations are certified. None of the laboratories are legally accredited. There is a certificate of conformity that is for the machines. It has nothing to do with the laboratory accreditations. This draft here that was given by your auditor states in here that the Unison used Wiley Technologies to certify Unison Open Elect 1.3. Well, that's impossible because I have this initial test from NTS on 1/5/2015. So how did they test it in 14? And Wiley Technologies, the one they said they used, has an expired accreditation of 2012. So how is this draft anything accurate? All of this is inaccurate. It's a very surface inaccurate report. It's not. The reason we do this is because it's sad and pathetic that we have to do it on double time to get the information to you guys. We asked for a workshop, you denied it. So we're up here doing double time. That's sad and pathetic for the people have to do that, resort to that to get this across. This is our voting. That time shouldn't even matter. It shouldn't matter. He's over there playing games while they're talking about canvassing. This man should be paying attention. This is ridiculous. All of this is incorrect from your auditor. There's not one correct page on here. Not one. And I am more than happy to go over it all with you. I will give you a whole day if you'd like. But I have the facts. And this, whether or not you guys understood it or not, is your fault because we can't get it through to you in any other way. How are we supposed to do it? The Missouri residents have beneficiaries of insufficient oversight, invalid contracts, mismanagement, gross negligence, and just complete obfuscation of what is really happening here. This is atrocious that you guys did not approve a workshop for this. This is our vote. This is our voice. We're going to double the people. We're going to double them, and we're going to triple them until y'all start listening, because what's happening is wrong. And it's up to you. Remember your oath, because I think I have every single one of y'all's oaths.
Okay. Please sit
Jason
down.
Moore.
Still certification of machines up.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name's Jason Moore, and I'm actually across the river in St. Louis County. But I decided to come up here just a couple of hours ago, so I'm totally unprepared. But I came up here specifically to talk about what is being reported up here in St. Charles County with the Augusta incident. So I guess my biggest question would be, how were the machines actually certified? Were each one touched and verified that they operate the way they're intended to operate? Were there documented and repeatable test cases for all machines used in the election? Are they available? the step-by-step that these machines went to test through. Were these test cases provided by the vendor exclusively or created in consultation with the election director's team? That'd be a very good question to answer, actually. After the machines were certified, are the machines hardened to the point so no extra updates can happen to them, whether it be hardware or software related, so that at that point that machine is completely and totally locked down? The reason I felt compelled to come here tonight is that, as we all know, we have a certain county executive in St. Louis County named Dr. Sam Page, who's been in national news more than a few times for being quite corrupt. One of the things my family and I are looking at potentially is moving out of the St. Louis County at some point. We don't want to. I want to continue and fight. I speak up there most every week. Not recently, but most every week. It's because it is that important. The problem we have in St. Louis County, and I fear starting to happen here in St. Charles County, is a crisis in trust in the government. I do not want to see that happening here. St. Charles County has been the reason you've seen so much growth over the past few years, and as far as I'm understanding, you're still the fastest growing county in the country, is because people have a sense of freedom here. And most of those people, I'm sure, move out from St. Louis County. St. Louis County, even from just a couple years ago, I don't recognize it. We were locked down hard. We do not have a trust in our elected officials there, or in our Department of Health, or any of the bureaucrats. And I do definitely fear that you guys are on the cusp of making a dreadful error. So I implore you, as what's been already very well spoken to, is listen to the people. Call into question how this was done, the Augusta incident, and take it extremely seriously. Our votes are our voices. Are our voices now and for the future. So with that, thank you very much.
Brenda Webb.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Webb.
Good evening.
I am back again to ask questions. I asked questions the last meeting, and the first one is why, based on what happened in Augusta, why weren't the poll pads in Augusta pulled out of service midday when they were notified? Why were they allowed to be used for another 5 or 6 hours? Why? Why? The next one is why, in light of the anomalies and issues in Augusta, did our Director of Elections certify our April 5th election on April 14th? When after that, on the 27th or 28th, he was on KMOV, Channel 4, a news interview, and he literally apparently said that he'd been talking to the vendor and they hadn't figured it out yet. But yet on the 14th, he certified the election. That's a problem, in my opinion. So number 3 is, again, what entails and constitutes a certification of our elections? You know, is it an audit? Is there some kind of audit routinely done that we could have confidence in? Is it a sworn affidavit? He put his name on that certification. I'm assuming that's a legal, guarantee in his name, putting his job on the line, I'm assuming, that it's accurate. And if it's not accurate, we need to find out. And we need to figure out what the problems are. Nobody wants to do anything but figure out and become confident our elections are fair and honest, and that the numbers are real. That's all we want to know. So, what's entailed? If you guys pass your thing tonight, did you do your due diligence and make sure those numbers are right? That's what we're asking. So, and again, I was going to show this because, I don't know if that'll come up. Just showing the document, and here's a bigger one. where you can see April 11th was when he certified. And then why, we want to know why you all denied a work session. Let's see all these people. There's so much documentation, and we didn't even know each other, a lot of us, before 2 weeks ago, some of us. And we just, you know, there's so much out there. There's so much documentation. The canvassers have been doing this for a year. Like, literally, you guys need to look at this. This is our election. So I suggest and request that you order or request a full outside independent audit for all our elections and election processes and make it ongoing on a regular basis.
Concerning the Wentzville School Board elections, Jennifer Barker.
Do I have to turn this on?
It'll come on in a second.
So I want to go over some election stats from my school board in Wentzville. On April 5th of 2022, Wentzville School Board election, there were a total of 59,001 active registered voters. There were 6,899 inactive voters. 8,726 people were voted in on April 5th, on April 5th, 22. That's 14.8% voter turnout. Provisional votes, there were 0. When we know there was at least one person that did have a provisional ballot, but we're not showing proof of that. There was low voter turnout. Julie Scott took first place with 869 votes. Again, these are just stats. 63 votes came from people in their 90s. 1, age 99, 2, 98, 6, 96, and as you can see, 2, 95, 7, 94, 5, 93, 10, 92, 14, 91, 16, 90. 555 votes came from people in their 80s. 1,548 votes came from people in their 70s. 1,673 in their 60s. I'm going to keep reading this in case you can't see that. 1,421 in their 50s. 2028 in their 40s, 1141 in their 30s, 232 in their 20s, and 65 votes came from teens.
Wow. Wow. Please. Quiet, please. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. Julie received 167 mail-in ballots. Looney received 101. They ran together, these two. So it's odd to me that there's 167 mail-ins for Julie, 101 for Looney. Katie Lysak and JJ Sufco ran together. Katie had 93. JJ had 44 mail-ins. From the unofficial election results stats originally posted on the official final election results posted, Julie received an additional 5 mail-in ballots, and Don received an additional 4 mail-in ballots. Katie, John, and Dale received only 1 more. Those numbers just came out of nowhere. That doesn't make any sense to us. But there's many questions that we have that are unanswered. I left St. Louis County because of what Jay spoke about, and I moved here 6 months ago to this. There's many of us that left because we are patriots. We want to live in a free county. And this is not what I'm seeing here. We need to simplify the process. When several of us asked Kurt Barr what had happened, he mentioned that there were so many processes. I think we need to simplify it. Would my children, would they understand? Could we explain it to them what these processes are? And I definitely want to bring back our sheriff.
Joe Hoft.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name's Joe Hoft. I'm happy to be here, thrilled to be here. I support all these patriots out here. You're the best. So, we got a lot to share. These guys have already talked about a number of things. I'm going to kind of conclude and kind of summarize some of the things that they shared. But first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I lived in this county for a number of years, and then I had an opportunity to go to Hong Kong. And I was a corporate executive there for a number of years. And I'm sad to say that country now is not the same country that it was in 2011 when I went there. And I think that's why we're here. We don't want to see that happen to this county or this country. So we know that if we don't have freedom of speech, we don't have our freedom. And we know if we don't have free and fair elections, it's all just gibberish. And that's why we are here. I'm just emotional about this. And here's the thing. Over in Hong Kong, I was a corporate executive. I was traveling the world. I got to meet all these corporate bodies, executives, boards, board members, and I sat in front of board members with individuals like you. And I tell you what, never once did I sit in front of one of those meetings and play Candy Crush on my phone when I was in front of them. Because that's what happened just now. And we have pictures of that. We have evidence of that. And I'm telling you what, the other thing I want to say, I got 10 degrees and designations. I've done a lot of audits around the world, 200 or so audits around the world. I've never seen what's happened in this country before. We can't even start an audit in this county because we don't even know what the totals are to begin with. This is outrageous. This stuff should have people standing on their chairs, totally livid. This is outrageous. Now, we went through a number of things here, but I guess the other thing I want to tell you, well, there's a number of things I want to share with you, but let's just go through the list of things. We talked about the canvassers. They mentioned we can't even give you a total of how many people voted in this county. We talked about the poll pads and how they're connected to the internet. And we got $600,000 in Zuckerbucks. Where did that go? What was that? This was not a good thing. This happened around the country. It didn't just happen here. And I'm telling you tonight in New Mexico right now, as you were sitting here, right now in New Mexico, there's a group of auditors that have done an audit in Otero County, or in a county there in New Mexico, and they're coming up and they found out as they're doing their audit, and they're reporting this right now, that while they were doing it, the county clerk erased data as well as Dominion voting machines did the same thing at the same time. So we want to get this fixed for our children and for our future. We've got to do that. And I got to tell you, I also worked at the Gateway Pundit with my brother who started it. It's one of the largest websites in the U.S. It's one of the largest websites in the Midwest. It's maybe the largest media outlet in the Midwest. We get 2 million people a day, and I've been writing about this election ever since, and we're growing. We've gotten up to 7 million people a day. I guarantee you that somebody playing Candy Crush in this meeting will be at the Gateway Pundit tonight.
Have a seat, folks.
Jen Olson.
Hi, Jen
Good
Olson.
evening.
Oh, broken microphone.
Guess just stick it back on, I don't know.
As you're aware, the citizens in this county have serious concerns about our elections. It's nationally known that St. Charles County, Missouri is one of the top targets for election fraud in our country. And the Wentzville School District is the top target in our county. Wentzville is the most conservative school district in the most conservative county and arguably one of the top 5 conservative states in our country. So with that being said, our election results for April 5th election are pretty hard to believe. Here are a few questions for Kurt and for the council members to consider as well. The candidate who received the most votes in Wentzville is an openly far leftist candidate. She ran a dual campaign with another openly far left candidate. They posted videos every week together, campaigned together. Everything they did was together. They came as a package deal. Yet one of them prevailed, and she received more votes than anyone on the ballot by a significant number. She has also received twice as many absentee votes as anyone on the ballot. Yet her running mate was almost dead last. Each ballot required you to vote for 2 candidates. It does not seem likely that the people who were so engaged in this election that they went through the process of requesting, filling out, and returning an absentee ballot didn't know who the winning candidate was running with. Shouldn't they both receive twice as many absentee ballots as votes as everybody else? The running mate only got about half of the absentee votes as the winner. Why were the Winsfield School District Board of Education results not reported until hours after other election results from our county were reported on election night? What process or steps are required to obtain copies of the scanned ballot images, copies of images of the envelope signatures, and copies of images of the tabulator tapes or receipts for the April 5th, 2022 election for all 25 precincts in the Winsfield School District Board of Education race? Question mark. How many total ballots had to be manually adjudicated? Were the mail-in ballot signature and addresses verified? If so, how? Why does the county election authority data show 0 provisional ballots when we know specific people who cast provisional ballots personally? Why did precinct 185 Josephville show 0 people voted? Why did precinct 275 or 207 Carriage Hills number 2 only show that 1 person voted? Based on numerous election integrity issues that have surfaced, St. Charles County citizens respectfully ask the council to request an external, independent forensic audit of all equipment and our entire election process. Thank you.
Concerning Bill Number 5063, Tom Hughes.
Do you want to wait till we introduce the item? Okay, all right, that's fine. Any other speakers?
Concerning 5063, Mary Dyer.
He doesn't understand that he had to speak now. No one calls him for someone else.
Hi, I'm Mary. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mhm, that's
I'm
okay.
Mary Dyer. I have a couple questions I will present to you regarding the zoning from agricultural into residential. And I would like these to be addressed, not specifically this evening, but when you go to look at this situation, that you do address these questions for yourself and for the current residents on Dyer Road. So my first one is, my concern is that we were kind of wanting to look for the square footage of houses, that the size of the houses be the size of the proposed deed. I want it on the proposed deed of the ground. We're supposed to be having a deed for the acreage so that if they say it's going to be a 1 acre lot, the deed will show that it's a 1 acre lot. So within that deed, I would like to see what size, whether it's a 15, 25, or 30,000 square foot house, that we don't get a tiny house on a big lot, which has been done previously. The other one is that these 3 properties have potential development, and that there would be an HOA that will also oversight that there is no rental property. Any of these houses will be turned into rental property. We do not want a transitional subdivision near us. The other one is, the biggest concern I have is the sewage system. I know there was a gentleman, and he's here this evening, that spoke on behalf, I guess, of Duck Creek, or I don't even know if he's even affiliated with Duckett Creek. So with that being said, I like to add my concern of the water waste that is dumped into White's Branch, which is this large creek that's been there forever, that runs, this water race between, this water, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. This waterway runs between acreage on our farm, and then we have to cross over White's Branch to get to other acreage. So with that being said, we have a consistent water flow now from I can't say it, the sewage plant, okay, and with additional erosion from the White's Branch versus a usual rainfall that you never see. Just when it rains, the water's running. Now it's consistent. When we go across our concrete slab, there's constant water flowing. Therefore, it is causing erosion on our farm property and the other numerous farm properties that are either south, near to this Riverdale, or north past our property. I believe it dumps into Quiver River. So with that, I would like to get you to see what you can do, what purpose you can do to correct this situation if you do approve of this particular sewage plant or this particular system. And the last thing, and I know this sounds stupid, but it's just something all of our neighbors like, on Dyer Road, north of the Riverdale subdivision, where Mr. Hughes wants to develop, there's tree lines. we'd like to see those tree lines remain.
Okay.
It's part of the atmosphere of our area, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dyer.
Scott Dyer?
Good evening.
How's it going? Scott
Good.
Dyer here, 2950 Dyer Road.
Okay.
That was my mom that just spoke, so she summed up a lot of concerns.
You're not going to contradict your mother, are
No,
you?
I'm not. I know, it's a tough spot where I'm at, because I sell real estate for a living as well, so.
Okay.
But basically, I was at the P&Z meeting, we all were, and they didn't want us to bring up any of the concerns besides just zoning concerns, so there was a plan that was brought, not everybody got to review it. So with that being said, I am the 5th generation of the farm, and I do have kids, and we plan to continue row crop farming in the area. The farm's still going strong, and I sell real estate professionally in St. Paul as well, and it's a growing area. So with all that, I understand how this all works. My family and the neighbors are upset in a way, because they don't want to see the change of the dynamic of the area. It's been there forever the way it is. And Riverdale had came in 08, and 08 crashed. And if you guys can see what's going on in the world, we're in 2022 and it's inflation involved, right? So the concern is what it's going to look like, you know, if the housing market changes and what Mr. Hughes would put in place if the development doesn't proceed in a timely manner. And that's the concerning matters of the square footage, traffic on 79. I don't know if you guys drive up down 79, but I do every day. It's dangerous. And then my mom brings up erosion because of the farm. The farm gets affected by erosion. I wouldn't say, I can't contradict Mom, but the creek flows nonstop. Whether it be coming from Watershed, from Riverdale, it does affect the farm. You can come see the farm and what's changed on White Branch and where the property has gone. It does go into Quiver River. And adding more houses and on the 60 acres, and then if there's additional houses to become, that stuff needs to be addressed because of what it's doing to the area. I just want it to be safe and in general for traffic. You guys are in charge of traffic. The county is, and that needs to be addressed because you guys are adding, if you put 3 cars per house, there's 102 more houses, and then there becomes another development. I mean, do the math on that, just adding one development to the area. So that needs to be addressed on Highway 79, which is all, my brother had an accident on Dyer Road because there's just a stop sign there. T-boned a brand new truck right there into a lady. Almost, luckily they're okay. So that's a huge concern. And I get where Mr. Hughes is coming from. He's got his daughter here as well, and
Thank you, Mr. Dyer.
thanks.
Neil McNeil?
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Members of the council, the more than 1 dozen letters in opposition to this development and the attendees at the planning and zoning meeting last month, and many of those here tonight, I would hope demonstrate the level of concern of the local community has regarding this high-density plan. The concerns are not just from long-term residents and large landowners. Several residents inside Riverdale have expressed opposition to the plan as well. To set the stage, let us remember that about 15 years ago, Mr. Hughes' company and a local landowner proposed a plan that many people in the area now regret. Agreements were made and then changed as economic conditions worsened. As Scott said, we're now looking at the movie Groundhog Day unfolding before our eyes. It's recognized that there are no plans to improve roads and bridges in the North St. Paul area. The Riverdale development alone has already increased traffic and brought a noticeable increase in not just the traffic, but actual accidents in the area. We're not complaining about our current roads. They're fine for the population based on 3 and 5 acre lots like the master plan suggests. At the Planning and Zoning meeting, it was stated that the Fort Zumwalt School District knew about this proposal and it was stated that their absence indicated acceptance. My wife has contacted several people in the Fort Zumwalt district and found no one who was aware of the 100-plus new homes possibly coming. And I think it's enlightening that when Riverdale was first proposed, Fort Zumwalt refused to expand the local elementary school. So rather than sending them to Mount Hope, the Riverdale kids are sent to Westhoff Elementary. So we already have an example of needed community services being stressed to the point of refusal to expand. We appreciate Mr. Cronin, Mr. Hughes, and others have worked together to come down from an initial plan of over 200 houses on this 60 acres. We also understand that it's rare, if ever, that a development proposal that's been endorsed by the staff and passed by the Planning and Zoning Board is ever stopped at this council level. So we're not asking for miracles. We appreciate Mr. Hughes has agreed to deed restrict the lot sizes, but a concern in the community is that the lot sizes were also established during the Riverdale planning phases, along with the square footage of the homes. We recognize that those were St. Paul City rules and the county rules are dramatically out of date. But since the rules have been altered by planning and zoning to allow more than one home per gross acre, why can't the square footage also be deed restricted to realistic numbers for today's market? Mr. Hughes has publicly stated that the people are looking for bigger and nicer homes in this area. If that's the case, shouldn't that be doable along with the land deed restrictions? We realize the horse is already out of the barn. The rule book was thrown out to get us to this point, so why can't we make one more change to lessen the concern that this becomes a transient rental property haven? So I would like to ask that the reasonable home sizes be included in the deed restrictions. Everyone in the St. Paul area recognizes the inevitability of increased population growth, and we welcome it when it doesn't create such massive unintended consequences. We have 2 other acreages being developed as we speak, and those 3 and 5 acre neighbors are looked forward to by the community. Thank you.
Jesse Bauer.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I would have been here at the last planning and zoning meeting, but I was getting a colonoscopy and I didn't want to blow it out of both ends. But anyway, I watched it on TV and 10,000 square foot lots. Oh my God, they were big. 1 acre buffers. Just think about it, 10,000 square foot lots. That's less than 1/4 of an acre. My gosh, that's little. You know, I have a son that lives in Riverdale. He wants to move out, but there is no 3 acre, 5 acre lots anywhere. That's what he wants to do. But, you know, you talked about the roads and stuff, and, well, Mr. Hughes' lawyer said, well, up on Highway U up there, they put an overpass in. How are we using Lincoln County? Look at Lincoln County. We don't want that kind of growth out here. So all I'm saying, you ain't voting tonight, but, you know, a yes vote would, or a no vote would be for we the people. A no vote would be for, you know, higher lots, density, for Bob the Builder. And another thing to remember, the next time there's a wreck on 79, did my vote contribute to that wreck? Then if that vote's a yes vote, then that yes is a blood vote.
Concerning bill number 5062, Jeff Benneman.
I'm sorry, which bill?
5062.
Okay. Oh, sure.
Yes.
Good evening.
How's it going?
Slow.
Go ahead, Jimmy. So I was born and raised in New Malley. We lived on farm, and we're required to have 5 acre lots if we're to give anybody in the family property. And these developers come out here and they can just turn it to 3 acres. I don't think that's right. Just if somebody's gonna, let's see here. Two other developments out in our area, the Bush Digger Farm and on Holt Road, were turned down to developers, and I think this should be too. It ain't far from it. Why should residents have to suffer the consequences of poor decisions and payoff from all these developers moving further out into St. Charles County. More traffic, more accidents with increased traffic, roads can't handle already. The infrastructure in our area, they're surveying for water lines already, and it's not even approved by you guys yet. They're putting a 16-inch water main on Highway Z, and they're already doing the surveying, and it's not even passed. So how does that work? Just the 2030 plan, that's 8 years from now. There's a guy that was in the planning and zoning meeting, and he keeps saying, the 2030 plan is what this is designed for. Well, that's 8 years from now. Why would it have to be now? That's all I had. I want your no vote.
Thank you, sir.
Chris Eaker.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good.
Busy night? Sorry.
Yeah.
My girlfriend would kill me for folding stuff up and putting it in my pocket like that. So I'm speaking on the same topic that the last gentleman was. And while there's plenty of good concerns and valid arguments to be made on traffic, on schools, on policing, all those are fine. But that is not necessarily what I believe that the council's duty is as you sit there in this regard. And the school districts and stuff can handle that. That's fine. What they can't choose to vote on is the character of an area. Look at places like Augusta, wine country, right? It would be a tragedy for Mr. Hughes, no offense, as a carpenter, that's not what the house should look like out there. You do not need cookie cutter subdivisions clouding an area with so much character. And this New Melly, granted, this is right on the border. There is an invisible line and there's a real line. And the invisible line is not where the real line is. If you drive through the area, and I encourage everybody up there to take the time and go through the area before making a decision on what should be done with that area. The 2030 plan is one way to look at things, and that's fine. But what needs to be done, and I understand that not everybody sitting there is on the Planning and Zoning Commission board, but you know them, you're familiar with them, and I encourage you to encourage them to do the due diligence, go through the area, look at it, and decide for themselves whether it fits that close to rural agricultural territory. My heart goes out to the folks on Dyer Road. Same deal. There is a character that should not be infringed upon for the aesthetic value that should be saved for not me, but my kids. I'm 32, and I plan to have kids, and I grew up down the street from Mr. Hollander. Beautiful area. Mr. Hollander's yard, not the brown nose, but the best one on the block. He takes a lot of pride in it, and I think that's why he does. And so I think that's why he was the only nay when it came down to preserving an area, which is all I'm after, is to have a little conscience when it comes to pulling these kinds of triggers. And like he said, anybody with a large construction company can pull these strings, but if I wanted to, it would be a heck of a lot harder to go from 5 to 3. They tell you to deal with it. Why is it different? Why is it different? So, and finally, real quick, the gentleman who speaks on behalf of the people, I think you might want to dress a little bit nicer. I love the blues, go Blues, but
Regarding heritage drainage and erosion issues, Tim Baker.
Sir?
Yeah, I got here late, I didn't get a chance to fill a card out, but I'd like to speak on that one issue.
Come up and get a card, and we'll see what issue you're talking on. We're supposed to get these before, but...
Yeah, I came in late, it's the same issue that
Just come up and fill out a card, sir. We'll call you up in a minute. I'm sorry, go ahead,
Okay.
sir.
Hello, my name is Tim Baker. I'm a candidate for St. Charles County Council, District 7. I'm here on behalf of the Heritage Landing Homeowners Association, or the homeowners. Since I decided to run for council, I was informed of this drainage issue that they have out at Heritage. Since that time, I've been working with State Senator Bob Onder, Senator Eigel, and State Rep Christopher Chiffinelli. And we were successful to get $2.5 million from Department of Revenue money. And the reason for this money was specifically for the Heritage Project. Now, it doesn't say that in the bill, but that's the reason for this money, is for the Heritage Development Project. This money is a one-to-one match. So, what I would like is the county to find a way to find the other half of the money. That would be $5 million that the county could allocate towards drainage issues around the county. And also, I am a civil engineer, and I've been doing designs for creek bank stabilization projects throughout this county, but not for the county. For O'Fallon, St. Louis County, St. Charles City, and St. Peters. In fact, when I used to work for St. Louis County Highway Department. 32 years ago, they found a way to find money without creating a taxing district. So I implore you, please, let's find some money, help these folks. Thank you.
Yeah, this, we'll let him speak.
Gil
since-
Katoon.
Is this our last speaker then?
No,
No, we have more.
3 more cards.
Okay.
Sorry about that, ma'am.
What?
There was
Just-
an accident and I got caught out.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I live at 3465.
What's your name, please?
My name's Gil Couture,
Yeah.
and I live at 3465 Highway Z. I built out here 8 years ago, and I love the county. When I built out here, I was told that we had to have 5-acre tracts because of the groundwater and other issues. I was told this by St. Charles County, the building, the septic, and I don't think it's fair for somebody to come in here and say they want to go with 3 acres. I don't think it's right. It's not fair to me. I know it's not fair to me. I don't think it's fair. And that's basically it. If that man wants to build, he can build 5-acre tracts there, and I know he'll sell every one of them. I'm not against this. I'm a carpenter by trade. I'm retired. I know what's happening here. I know what's happening, and that's fine. But at least do it on 5-acre tracts, like they told me I had to do. I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying. Thank you for your time. That's all I'm saying. At least make it 5-acre tracts. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
And returning to erosion and heritage, Jim Rutherford.
Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
It's like, feel like we're on a first name basis. I've been up here so many times in the last 2 years. So I'm just gonna kind of follow up what Mr. Baker said. In 2 years, we've been coming here trying to find help from the board. And it's amazing that miraculously, 3 months before an election, we find $2.5 million, and all we have to do to get it is ask the board to match it. I don't know where it was before, but it's here, great letter. So, and sitting here all night, I just gotta believe that there is hope. We've lost 2 homes, we've lost several swimming pools in the area, and we just appeal to your good nature. And I'd say if you guys, on behalf of everybody in the room, if you woke up tomorrow in one of the fastest growing counties in Missouri, and you had fair elections, you had no erosion, houses for people to live in that are on the size things, and did the right thing, would that be such a terrible place to live? Thank you.
Tara Rath.
Hi, I'm
Good
Tara
evening.
Rath. I've been here as well before. So I live in Heritage. I have 3 kids. I've lived here in St. Charles County for about 5 years. Moved from St. Louis County. I know that's been mentioned by other people. Very grateful to Mr. Baker and Senator Onder and the council for listening to us thus far, dealing with the erosion. But as Jim just told you, we lost 1 home, which was demolished on my court, which had 6 houses. Now it's about to be 4 because we're in the process of losing another house that has really substantial, just foundation problems that people have actually left. And there's a great deal of movement on my land. And this bill that's from the or is part of the budget for the state, the $2.5 million that was referenced, that's the Department of Natural Resources. And it specifically states stormwater mitigation and remediation in residential area that has experienced damage to residential property as a result of erosion caused by stormwater. It's like I woke up and somebody told me, Happy Mother's Day, there might be a chance. Again, we overpaid for our house 5 years ago. We are in a really tough situation now, as well as a lot of other people in our subdivision, and I'm just hoping that you guys can help. We were here, as a lot of these people are, with a big group back in August. I was here first 2 years ago. John White had been out, didn't share that with any of you, but now I think you're well aware. Elliot Davis has been out. I mean, we're going to keep fighting, and I can't lose my house, and I'm really hoping I don't lose my neighborhood. So hopefully you guys can help us. Thank you.
Arnie Dienoff.
Good evening, members of council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate, running to be the next St. Charles County Executive in August. Everyone that comes in this room is entitled to their opinion. I am here tonight in a Blues jersey, hockey jersey, proudly displaying my enthusiasm for my hometown, support for the St. Louis Blues in their quest to win the playoffs to bring us home another Stanley Cup championship. That's the reason why I'm wearing this Blues jersey. So I will do that if it's the Cardinals, if it's the Chiefs, if it's the hockey team Blues. I will continue to do that. And even for Mr. Hollander, the Lindenwood teams that go to national championships. I believe in community. Theme over months and months of issues. We as citizens ask questions here, but we never get responses or results. We never get investigations. There are secrets that are held by those 3 people over to my left, the acting county councilor, the county executive, and the director of administration. They want to keep secrets all the time from the citizens that they're supposed to represent while they're making lots of salary, benefits, and pension. Mr. Joe Cronin, I and the entire county are still awaiting for a humble apology from you for disparaging, causing me, and using harsh and foul language and malicious slander at the 4 weeks ago at a county council meeting. I'm asking the county council to admonish Mr. Cronin and censor him once and for all. We are St. Charles County strong, and it's not about Mr. Cronin's $1 million pockets of getting wealthy from us taxpayers when he gets federal and Missouri farm credits, which is really a shame that it goes to an elected official. Last week, a survey is being conducted calling county voters' cell phone numbers about who they're going to vote for in the August 2nd primary. You know, this is great news. I'm at the top of the poll because I'm first on the ballot. But the bad news is that the call is being conducted by a convicted federal felon, David Barklage, a personal friend of Steve Ellman's. This survey is paid for by Steve Ellman. Yes, Steve Ellman is friends with the political consultant David Barklage, look it up, who in January was convicted of a federal felony and found guilty for doing fraud against the federal government. Mr. Barklage cannot cast a vote in any election for at least the next 5 years. Is Steve Ellman running his campaign, or is special outside of county interest running Mr. Ellman's campaign? David Barklage, John Hancock.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Okay, thank
The
you.
final speaker.
Mr. Cronin, since you were addressed personally, you wanted to respond.
I just want to make it clear here, on a hot mic that I didn't know it was Hike, I call Mr. Dean off a jackass. And I looked up did a little work on online. It says basically jackass described as a person who lacks good sense or judgment. And Mr. Deanoff has been coming to every public meeting in this county for 10 years, wasting a lot of people's time. Addition to that, he's ran for office several hundred times, never winning, okay? And as far as me calling him jackass, I'll defend that term because it also says calling someone a jackass is a tradition in U.S. politics. Since he's a proverbial always candidate for some type of office, you better get used to it, Mr. Deanoff, because in politics, it's tradition to call another candidate a jackass. And that goes back to the 1800s. Andrew Jackson was the first one started it. And also that's one of the reasons why the symbol of the Democratic Party is a jackass. There you go.
Quiet.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Stop. Be This is not your public comment. Okay, we have another speaker? That's it? Okay, that will conclude the public comments for the evening. The next item on the agenda is the oral report from the county executive. Mr. Ellman.
Well, Madam Chairman, I wasn't going to make a report, but I guess I need to comment on a couple things. First of all,
Please be quiet, everyone, so you can hear.
I don't really think campaigns should be discussed here at all.
I agree.
But my campaign is being run by John Hancock, who I went to the legislature with in 1989. And he's done all my campaigns. And Mr. Barklage is a friend, but he's not employed by me or my campaign or anything. With regard to the situation in Heritage, just to bring you up to speed, I believe it was in December that Mr. White and I went to the meeting. At that point, we told them that we were working on three things. We told them that we were going to ask in the budget, and you all did put in the budget, $1 million for 2 trucks to go ahead and check the various pipes out there for sewer, stormwater pipes. So that has been done. It's in the budget. Right now, it's a supply problem. As soon as we can get those trucks, we will get them. The second thing we mentioned was that I had talked to Representative Cristofanelli, and he told me that he was going to try to get some money in the budget, and he did, and anybody who helped him deserves our thanks as well. The third thing is that we talked about trying to maybe change the statute or find a way that we could do a drainage district to assist. And the reason, if we do a drainage district, then we would have a good reason for contributing. So that we've solved that problem, and I think we can do a drainage district. And if we do that, we can contribute. Now, here's the one thing we didn't mention then, because we weren't sure exactly when it would come out. But in December, we still didn't have the guidance on ARPA funds. We got that in January. And I'm pretty sure that we can justify it, but I will be asking the attorneys to take a close look at that and see.
Speak up. Speak up.
Just. All right. They couldn't hear your last comment, Mr. Ellman. Maybe you could just repeat about the ARPA funding, I think, was the issue.
You couldn't hear anything about it?
Just the last part about the ARPA,
Oh,
I think.
yeah, well, what I said is in December, we couldn't really promise anything.
And I'm not going to promise it now until Rory has a chance to look at it and his folks. But in December, we didn't know what the guidelines were going to be on how the ARPA funds could be used. On January the 6th, I believe, they came out. They're very thick, and our attorneys have been looking at them. But I'm pretty sure, I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to use some of that money and perhaps do a match. But the most important thing is we need to start studying it, get some engineers involved, find out what's going to be involved, how much it's going to cost, and then also try to find a way to find some money to get this thing fixed, okay?
Thank you. Anything further than this evening, Mr. Ellman? All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Okay. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. There was one item that was removed from the consent agenda last month concerning the election authority. Is there a motion to approve that item today?
Motion to bring it off the table.
Okay. Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So concerning the election authority, we invited Kurt Barr here today. Kurt Barr does not report to the council. He's an independent elected official. Mr. Barr, you've agreed to come this evening and make some comments about that item. Is that correct? Yes. All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, Council, I appreciate your invitation to come and to speak. Do you want me to talk about the issue of certification, or would you like me to first talk about the issue with the iPads and that particular?
Whichever, in whatever.
Okay, so let's go ahead and begin with what seems to be the most contentious issue, and that's the issue of the poll pads not properly working on Election Day. All right, so it took some time to do the investigation and figure out what happened, and it was a combination of two particular problems that coalesced together to create the problem. So we had one particular voter who was mailed an absentee ballot on February 23rd, the first day we can mail out absentee ballots. That ballot was returned to us as undeliverable. My office tried to contact that particular voter. We were unable to contact that voter, and so it was marked as a undeliverable ballot into our system. Typically, we mark undeliverable ballots after an election as to before, but we only had one for this election, and so we went ahead and marked it before. That's where the error first occurred. For whatever reason, the state system, MCVR, changed the coding of that ballot from absentee sent to simply absentee. In essence, a glitch of the system. I've asked the Secretary of State's office to figure out why it changed that. I don't know yet. They haven't been able to figure that out. However,
Please listen respectfully or leave the council chamber. You've all had an opportunity to, ma'am, we took public comment from everyone who signed up. This is now Mr. Barr's opportunity to speak, and as we listen respectfully to the speakers, I'm going to ask you to do the same. Go ahead, Mr. Barr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what then happened is the day we marked this person as their absentee ballot as undeliverable was March 29th. All right, so the last day of absentee voting was April 4th, a couple days later. So this report was generating what we call a supplemental file. So the way we program our iPads, on March 21st, we ran a report out of MCVR that captured everybody who had been sent an absentee ballot by mail, any absentee ballots we had received, anybody who had in-person voted up until March 21st. So all of those people, all of that information was correct into the iPads. Then anybody who started to vote on March 22nd up to April 4th, that 2-week span of time, they were uploaded into what's called a supplemental file. And the supplemental file is first generated by MCVR, and then we take that Excel file that we pull out of MCVR, put that into the ePulse program, which is a program that runs the poll pads from the Knowing company. And then that information is then uploaded so that if there is anybody who changes their address between, the 4-week cutoff and the election day, we can have that updated. If anybody has in-person absentee voted, we can have that flagged so that it's marked as absentee ballot sent or received. All of these changes are included in the supplemental file. However, when the supplemental file had the error from that one record, the way that our vendor's programming was designed at that time, it stopped. It stopped processing the download into the iPads. So my vendor told me that this is an issue that they had not seen before, where instead of seeing absentee sent or absentee received, which are the two status codes that the program is expected to see, it simply saw the word absentee. And at that time, their program did nothing. It simply stopped. They have since fixed their programming so that if they ever have an issue with a line, whether it's this issue or some other issue, it will continue to process the download of the rest of the records. So we were able to identify that this error in the download of the information from the website, ePulse website, to the poll pads affected 44 of our polling places of the 105 that we have, and affected about 300 voter records. Now, in the polling place that this was first discovered in Augusta, there were 10 people who absentee voted. 7 of those people were showing up correctly in the poll pad. Only 3 of those 10 were not showing up correctly. Those 3 were all my election judges working at that polling place that day. So those 3, when they looked themselves up, it looked like the problem was 100%, when in fact they saw 100% of the problem. Anywho, so then...
Can I ask a question? Or do you want to continue?
Why don't we wait until he's finished?
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, on election day, the election judges, from what I've been told, discovered this issue around 8:30 in the morning. Around 10:30 in the morning, one of the election judges contacted my office and talked to an employee who failed to inform me of the situation. That person is no longer employed by St. Charles County. Around 1:30, another phone call was made to my office to a different member of my staff, who then immediately alerted me and my deputies of the situation. Now, I was out of the office at that time because I was dealing with some other issues at other polling places. I got in about 2 o'clock and became aware of the situation. And so the first thing I did is to look into the system and to look to see where the problem might be. And in the oddness of this particular problem, the website, the ePulse program, was correct. The issue wasn't that information. The issue was the download to the iPads in the field. That's where the error occurred. So from my position in the Election Authority office, there was no problem. Now, so that's why I personally went out to the polling place, at the end of the day, to look at the iPads to see what the issue might be, because at first I thought it might have been a connectivity issue. We learned that that is in fact not the problem. The Wi-Fi and the cellular service was working just fine. The issue was that because of this glitch of this one voter's record, and because of how the programming for the iPads was designed at that time, it's since been fixed, the download ceased to occur. Now, we did also discover that there is a way for my staff to force the download from the poll pads. It is not exactly the easiest thing. It requires us to have physically touch the iPads. But there is a way that we could, in fact, have gone to that iPad and forced it to download the rest of that information. But that was something that we discovered after the fact, after we had time to look into it. So that is why those 3 election judges who were assigned to work the Augusta polling place and who live and were assigned to vote at the Augusta polling place did not see themselves as having absentee voted, because all 3 of them had in-person absentee voted in my office after we create that file on March 21st. And that's why they're not. Now, not everybody who absentee voted was not showing correctly. I traditionally vote the day before the election. And I do that so I can make sure that the supplemental file works. And I looked myself up, and my information was showing correctly in the iPad. And so some of the information was uploaded correctly, and some of the information was not.
So, and that's been resolved, you're saying?
So that's been resolved. So we've done several things.
I want to ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
You're going to have an opportunity
I
to
know,
do
but I
that.
asked, this happened in my district, so I'd like to
No,
ask some questions.
absolutely. I just want to make sure if Mr. Barr is finished with this issue or not finished with the issue of...
So we have discovered that because it was a single record and because it was an issue where we had identified a particular ballot as undeliverable, we simply changed our policies to only flag those records as undeliverable, those absentee ballots as undeliverable, after an election, so that we can't inadvertently create this problem again. The No Ink company, who creates the ePulse program, has updated their software so that if a bad record hits their system again, it doesn't stop the download, preventing all the rest of the good records from being updated. The Secretary of State is still looking into figure out if this is a inadvertent change from a recent update or if this was truly a one-off glitch within our system. We don't know. That's still being looked into. And then we also found a way that if we come across this problem again, then we can go out to the polling location and tell the iPads to force the download and retrieve the rest of the information.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Browser.
Kurt, you said that there were over 300, you recognize there were 300.
Yes.
So then why did you certify the election?
Because only...
300 votes would have been a won or loss in a school board election, so how could you have done that? And my other question is how many other judges tested to see if their absentee ballot would go through or not, that you're aware of?
To answer your first question.
Okay.
First?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to do second first?
No, but just don't drag it on and get to the point. That's what I would like to hear. Yeah, go on.
Okay. So you asked why did I certify the election when 300 voters were not properly updated into the system that showed that they had an absentee ballot sent or received? Because not only do we have the process of updating these iPads so that the election judges can know whether or not somebody has been received a ballot, but after the election, we take all that information of everybody who voted, and then we upload that back into MCVR. If anybody votes at a polling location and had already received or been sent an absentee ballot by my office, then an error or a message would flag saying this person has voted twice. For the April election, we only had one such error.
When does that happen? What's the time? What's the real time on that?
Typically, the Monday after the election.
Well, then how do they call the elections that night?
They don't.
Yeah, they do.
Well, the news does.
And so, but that's what they go with. So my other question
That
is...
I can't control the news.
Yeah. My other question is I did
Please,
send you,
please,
I sent you all
folks.
these questions that
You
are very
did.
important to the, and you completely blew it off. You didn't answer any of them. I sent these questions to you like last week.
You did.
And so I'm very concerned. And there's something that you got to understand is this isn't about Kurt Barr. This is about St. Charles County elections.
You mentioned
So some of the things that you were sending FOI on are the voter rolls in St. Charles County inflated. What was the number of voters registered at the time of April 2022, November 20 elections? Which election? You were the only county director that, out of 10 counties that didn't answer any of these questions. You refused to respond to the FOI.
I don't recall getting a sunshine request for that information.
Well, the lady's right there, and she's got a copy of it, but we can get to that later.
Okay.
Okay. The poll pads.
Yes.
So you said that there were 300 questions. So I don't, what I do know is the judges out there complained at 8:30. You said it went to employee. That employee is no longer with us. At 1:30, you got another message, and then you didn't come out there till after the polls were closed. And then they did everything they were told. That a judge is supposed to let you know if there's a problem. That's why they're there, to let you know if there's a problem. And then you turned them in when they were inquiring because one of them did vote. They all agreed. 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans agreed. This is what we needed to see if it go through. And then the one did go through, and then you call the prosecutor, you call the police on them to have them prosecuted, when you, in fact, never even resolved the problem. I mean, there's so many issues here, and light, this is very important, and I did, in fairness to Nancy, I requested a work session to her like on Thursday, but I don't think she knew the extent of what some of the conversation was going to be, and I know the council didn't either. I sent them questions on, I think today, I answered the questions you never answered. It's not important to you to answer questions, and I am an elected official here, and I do have my constituents of where this incident happened. And I think there's a lot of problems here. The canvassing that was done, you know that when we went with Mike Lindell and met with his team of forensic auditors, we talked about all this. We had a bunch of elected officials in there. We went over all this stuff.
I recall the meeting.
And we said if there were 100 fraudulent votes proven in St. Charles County, Jay Ashcroft said he would demand an audit of the state of Missouri, and you agreed that if it was proven to you, you would do an audit too. They sent you a brand new forensic audit machine to do a forensic audit, and they would have let our IT people hook it up, and then you were concerned about contaminating machines. He said, you pick 2 machines, we'll pay for the machines, we'll do whatever, then you can buy new ones, and you sent the audit machine back and refused to do the audit. I do not understand that. I don't understand that. So what I'm going to ask of this council is, in light of all the problems we're seeing, if you folks, if the council, and I don't believe you, I think you guys are seeing there's some problems here, at least questions. These are questions that should be answered. We could be wrong because we're not election officials, but I don't think so. I think there's some anomalies here that are 162 absentee votes in Winsville doesn't make any sense. We asked you for the voter images on that election.
I can't give that to you. It's illegal.
Well, then we'll have to we'll do an injunction or something, because you won't even sit down with people to have a conversation. It's insane. Yes, it is, Kurt. Yes, it is. You and Mark never even called me back. You're ignoring all this stuff.
I believe that you and Mr. Parkinson had multiple conversations.
He said he would call me on Saturday to go over these questions. He never did. Okay? So anyway, the problem is it exists. There is canvassing issues. These people spent months and months canvassing. These are legit. You should be concerned about this. You should care about it. These folks, they all, like somebody said, they don't all know each other. They put all this stuff together on all the knowledge. Joe Hoff is a PhD in forensic analysis. He's been all over the place. A lot of these folks are very intelligent, very smart people, IT people. This isn't some whimsical group that's some right-wing lunatic tin hat wearing people. These are concerned patriot Americans that are concerned about our elections. Mm-hmm. We need to deal with this.
Okay.
I'm going to ask this council not to validate the election, and then I think we should audit a forensic audit, an independent audit of our election. And this is nothing to do with you. This is just to make sure that we can have confidence in our elections. And that's what we really need to do.
Mr. Cronin, you wanted to say something?
Yes, while everybody was speaking, I read the charter. I also looked up Section 115, the revised statutes of Missouri. Unfortunately, we have to understand that we have our own realm at this council. And if you read the charter, it's section, I would encourage anybody to do this, it's Section 450. You're the man in charge of rules and regulations for elections in this state, or this county, by... Read the charter. I quoted the section. Okay, per the county charter, you're in charge of making the rules and regulations under Missouri law. And then secondly, if you look at Section 115 revised statutes, Missouri, this is state law, it says the election authority shall conduct all public elections in their jurisdiction, which is what you do.
Correct.
Further, it says, it also states that the Secretary of State shall be the chief election official under the National Voting Registration Act. And this is where you folks might want to look at Section 115.136 of state law. It says any aggrieved person may bring civil action pursuant to the National Voting Registration Act of '93 with the Secretary of State's office, okay? We're being asked to certify an election for a transportation sales tax that won by 17,000 votes, okay? So the 100 or two, while I understand everybody wants to know where every vote went to, the few hundred votes that we might have in question wouldn't have made any difference in the election that we're being asked to certify. Secondly, I was at the meeting with Mike Lindell and Dr. Frank as well. And after that meeting, I spoke with you and Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft and up on the parking lot, walking to the parking lot. And I said, do you see any concerns with this election? I asked both you and Secretary of State Ashcroft. And Mr. Ashcroft's in charge of the election integrity for the entire state. And they said, no, not anything out of the ordinary. We have a few issues with every election because it's not a perfect system, okay? That being said, you also should be aware, folks out there, you also, yes, it is. That's what his response was.
Order in the chamber, order.
That's what his response to me from Secretary Ashcroft and them. Additionally, I want you to be aware that I'm the only person as council that did not, please be quiet. I'm the only person as council didn't vote for those election machines. You inherited them from Rich Krismer, okay? I thought they were a lot of money, and I didn't like the fact that they were made in a foreign country or owned by a company foreign country. But in hindsight, I probably stand corrected on that because from what I know, they're the most reliable machines you can buy, okay? Tell us one that's more reliable, okay? So that being said, as a point of order, we're not certifying as a point of order, we're not certifying the entire election. We're certifying just the results for the transportation sales tax.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay, excuse me, Mr.
Barr.
Mr. Hollander.
Yeah, before you spoke, you said that there were two things that you could speak on, and you spoke on the first one, which was the situation in Augusta. But the second thing that you were going to speak on was certification.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm asking council's permission for him to speak on that particular topic.
Yes, please.
So the way that the process works, obviously we have all of the pre-auditing, including the public test, which is obviously open to the public on to making sure that our machines properly count all the ballots. After the election is over, and we have received all of the ballots from all our polling places, all of the thumb drives from all our machines. We have given the military the extra 3.5 days that they have to return any absentee ballots by mail that they may have. Then we will then go through all of the provisional ballots and go through to determine whether or not those provisional ballots should be accepted or should not. Now, under state law, I have to keep a spreadsheet of all the provisional ballots by the number on the yellow envelope that the ballots are put in, and then each voter is given a little tear-off tab that has that number. And on that spreadsheet, I record whether or not it was accepted or rejected, and if the provisional ballot was rejected, I record the reason why that ballot was rejected, so that any voter can contact my office and say, here is my provisional ballot number, was my ballot accepted or rejected? Then the verification board makes the final determination as to whether or not a provisional ballot should be accepted or rejected. We do not have a separate line item in our reporting for provisional ballots. They are incorporated in the line for absentee ballots, which is why when one of the questions talk about why is there 0 provisional ballots, is because we put them on the absentee line. So then, after the verification board has met, and the purpose of the verification board is to look at the results of every precinct and look at the number of check-ins and look at the number of ballots cast and make sure that there was no stuffing of the ballots. Make sure that there isn't a anomaly. And that is how one way we could have caught if our election judges had processed one of themselves through the poll pad and stopped there, then there would be off by 1. There'd be 1 more check-in than ballot. If, however, there was an extra ballot passed into the machine, then it evens out and looks correct. Until, of course, we upload the voter history, and we can see that we have an error where somebody had actually voted twice. So then the verification board does that process and looks to see if there's any anomalies within the election. Afterwards, they sign off, and then I then certify the election. And so I do it twice, technically. I certify the cumulative election, and then especially for these municipal elections where we have multiple political subdivisions, as with the election results I gave you, I then certify each individual political subdivision's election separately so that it's simply easier to see and to read. And so that is I guess, nicety that I had done, as opposed to giving you the cumulative one, then you have to kind of look through to find yours. And so that's why, the election is certified. Your task is to either accept or not accept the results of the election for your transportation tax, which you asked me to put on the ballot.
Okay. This is the magic question that I'm asking. The issue that we have in front of us, accepting certification election totals, is not at all concerning any other municipality, including Wentzville School Board.
That's correct.
The only thing we would be accepting would be the certification of the road board tax. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's.
Yes, Mr. Hammond.
Yeah, I think there's been enough concern raised that we definitely should look at an independent audit, and I don't think these people are, just hold it down a second, let me finish. I don't think these people are going to trust our voting system until we do that, so I would be in favor of an independent audit of the election.
And I think that's a separate issue than what we're dealing with right now. Okay. We are going to be asked to vote on the certification of the road board tax. That is what we are going to be asked to do tonight. We are not going to be asked to do other things. Now, if you, as Mr. Hammond said, are looking for an independent audit, we can certainly discuss that. We can certainly take a look at that. But that's not what we're dealing with tonight.
Stop.
I have a question.
No, listen.
Just to
I'm ready to call the question on certification. There are different issues here that are all being thrown into the one thing.
That's why I said we needed more time to talk about this. I said that, we needed over an hour. This is so important.
You called me on Thursday and
We had-
said you wanted a 1-hour closed meeting.
Not
Now,
closed, a
that
work
you
se- a
did
work
say
session,
a
a
closed.
work
You
session.
told me a closed meeting.
Well, I misprinted it, but it would have been a work session.
Okay.
I have no problem with the work session. I think the majority of the council would have no problem with the work session.
But there was no
Okay.
information about what it would entail. Apparently, you wanted to invite a whole bunch of people there.
I didn't invite these people. You
No,
think
no,
I
I
need to
mean
invite these people to want
to
to
the
come to
work
this?
session or the closed session.
Did the Wentzville School
No,
Board
you're
certify the
misunderstanding
election?
me. If that's a separate issue.
Do they
If you
get
wanna
to-
have
do
a
they get to do
work
that?
session, we can
Did the Wentzville School
discuss
Board
that.
certify their election?
I have no idea.
Not
We
yet.
don't know.
I
Well,
don't know.
Okay.
Here's what
Will
you
they be
guys
asked
have
to?
The road board tax, right or wrong,
Just
probably a
us.
great thing for the county. I never said it was a bad thing. All I'm saying is by certifying the election, you're saying that you're swearing to it that you know that it's accurate. And so that's the only thing. I mean, unless there's a time frame on it, I'm sure it passed. There's no question about it because it's a good thing for the
I
county.
don't think we can authorize the funds to actually, I mean, isn't there some reason why we need, this is more than just a formality.
So
Mr. Barr, I'm asking you.
So what you are doing is simply accepting the results of the election. You are not certifying the election. I certify the election. The election is certified. You're simply accepting the results. Mr. Cronin was asking me the question, did Wentzville certify their election? The answer is, I don't know. I don't pay attention to every political subdivision. However, what the tradition is the next meeting after a municipal election is for those political subdivisions to then accept the results of the election and then to swear in any new board members if there is a candidate race, and then to accept the results of any tax bond or other type of issue. So that is what is before you today, is to accept the results of the election. You're not accepting the veracity of the election. I have sworn to you the veracity of the election. You are now taking my word, because I'm the election authority, that the election is correct. Now,
Quiet.
this is the process.
Okay.
One thing and I'll be done. I'll be done. One thing and I'll be done. The
feeling
county councilman said that we are not responsible of election integrity or election direction or whatever you said, which is true. However, we fund him. And so if we're going to fund an audit, which we can and should, or if we're going to defund him for just total malfeasance or whatever it may be or may not be. I don't know, Kurt. All I'm saying is an elected official, each and every one of us, should be responsible and obligated to look into all these questions so we can restore confidence in the elections. That's it, period.
Final comment from Mr. Cronin.
I've known you before you were involved with politics, okay? You listen to me. Listen to me. Give the man the credit for this, okay?
This
He
is
served
disruptive.
your country honorably as an Air Force officer. He served in the Missouri legislature for many years. I know his family, I know him. I know him back when he was a young guy. I know the Secretary of State as
have
well,
asked the
okay?
sheriff.
And I asked both of them if there was a problem with this election, okay? And both of them said nothing out of the usual. Now, that being said, the points you folks brought up, maybe they do need a little bit more attention. But that's the Secretary of State's job, it's not the county council's job.
I'm going to call the question. Please call the roll.
Call the question.
Call the question, call the roll.
The question would be to accepting the certified election totals of the April 5th, 2022 general municipal election. Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
No.
Councilmember Elam? Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
No.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the next item
That was
on the
just calling the
agenda.
question. You gotta put this,
What?
you didn't vote this, that was just calling a question, wasn't it?
That was a vote. That was
Okay.
the vote.
All right.
There's a bill for final passage, Bill number 5060.
Bill
Please
number
read the-
5060, an
the
ordinance
title.
extending the duration within which a conditional use permit must be in place.
Please leave quietly. Please leave quietly. You can discuss in the hallway if you like. I'm sorry, please.
No, she didn't.
Read the title.
Continue. An ordinance extending the duration within which a conditional use permit must be in place and in active use before it is considered null and void for all permits set to expire during the current 270-day extension, for a total extension period of 487 days from August 31st, 2021.
Is there any discussion or question? Please read the title and call the roll.
Hey, you too, pal.
An ordinance extending the duration within which a conditional use permit must be in place and in active use before it is considered null and void for all permits set to expire during the current 270-day extension, for a total
Good.
extension period
My
of
wife would be happy.
487 days from August 31st, 2021.
Get away.
Councilmember Cronin?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam? Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Bill passes. Bills for introduction. Bill number 5062.
Bill number 5062, requested by Mike Hurlbert, sponsored by Joe Brazel, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to RR Single Family Residential District per application RZ 22-05.
Is there any discussion on this bill?
I have discussion.
Yes.
On this bill here, I believe there's been a remonstrance. Robert, do you know, you probably don't know yet, do you? Did you verify it?
Here's what we have. The number of properties needed for remonstrance to be effective would be 10, and all the signatures would have to be correct and notarized, et cetera. So at this point, we have, I believe, 9 remonstrances submitted, and so we're checking those signatures and also for certification.
So they have 9, they need one more or something?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that-
my understanding.
He turned it 25.
Okay.
Okay, so let's assume there's a remonstrance, but we'll wait till it's verified. On this particular property, I had a lot of people call me. This is right outside of New Melle. It's like 2.7 miles from Winsville, which is the only city that could really handle the infrastructure. I will be absolutely opposed to this. This is a 3-acre subdivision. We have 5-acre minimums. That's what the people in our county want. They want small town strong. They don't want overdevelopment. They're going to ruin it just like they ruined Highway K. You know, you go down Highway K and it has no character, like that gentleman said. It's embarrassing. I mean, it's a great place to live if that's what you look like, but people who live out there, we represent the people who live in the area, not the builders and not the people who are going to move there. So we represent the people who live in our area, and in my area, they love rural atmosphere. They love five-acre lots. I appreciate Mr. Hollander's vote. I know John White was on the board in 2006 when we changed it from 3 acres to 5 acres. We want the rural area out there. There is no 3-acre subdivisions close to this property. There's none. And so we can't use that excuse like Mr. Cronin used last week. So there are no 3-acre subdivisions. This is a rural area, and there will be a remonstrance filed on this. So hopefully, and that's Jesse, that's what you need to do. You need to go get a remonstrance filed with 30% of the people sign it and notarize it. It has to be a super majority by the people on this board, because it's going to rule small town strong in St. Paul too. Yeah. So anyway, that's my thought on that particular thing.
Is there any other discussion or comments on this bill?
I do.
Yes.
Yeah, again, I can't remember how many different times in the last 5 years we voted on 3-acre lots, 5-acre lots. Not only here, but also in planning and zoning, which I've been on for a couple years now. And my question is always, where is the line? Okay, we've always talked about a line, okay? And the line seems to shift. And the one thing that one of the constituents mentioned before is that the line is pretty arbitrary, and I think you actually have to look at the actual particular area before you decide is 5-acre lots or 3-acre lots, advisable. So this, again, I probably voted, 75, 80% of the time for 3-acre lots, but on this instance, I just didn't think it was feasible.
Okay. Any other comments from anyone? Mr. Aylman?
May I inquire of
Yes.
Robert for a minute?
Yeah, Robert, sure.
Just so that everybody understands.
Can you just talk a little bit louder, Mr.
For
Aylman?
the remonstrance, that the property has to be adjacent to the property in question, or within a certain, because there's different standards. Is this within
What are
a
the
certain length
requirements?
of-
1,000 feet.
So if any part of the other property is within 1,000 feet, then it's eligible. Okay, but if it's beyond 1,000 feet, it would not be. Okay, so they need, people need to make sure they need to get the people that are.
We can't hear either.
We have a lot
Clear
of,
them people.
a lot of competition from outside.
What I was stating
He's
was
trying.
1,000 feet. It has to be within 1,000 feet of this property. And the ordinance specifically says 30% of the property owners of properties within 1,000 feet. So there's a little bit of a calculation involved.
Okay. Can you all hear? You can move closer if you need to. I mean, there's a lot of vacant seats up here. Okay. Any other questions,
I do.
Mr. Aylman?
I have one. Just a comment.
Yes, sure.
Okay. Just to be clarified, we talk about the 3-acre, 5-acre thing. I grew up on 3 acres in O'Fallon. And up until, from the beginning of this county zoning, I think in 1959, until 2006, you could build a home on 3 acres in this county, okay? Only between 2006 and today, the last 16 years, was there 5-acre regulations, okay? A lot of the smaller towns in my district, Flint Hill, Josephville, St. Paul, they're 3 acres because they were 3 acres before '06, back to '59. They've always been 3 acres. I don't think things are going to be destroyed like Highway K with row-to-row houses on 3-acre tracts. In one way, take a look another way. In this particular application, with 3-acre tracts, you're going to have 30 homes. With 5-acre tracts, you're going to have 19, okay? So that's according to Robert's calculations. So if there's people that want to build 30 homes there, you're going to burn up more farmland with those 5-acre lots. Think about that. That's going to happen, okay? So I don't think 3-acre lots destroy the character of an area. We have a lot of good folks in 3-acre lots in St. Paul. And the last one that came through at Kirstein Road, 3-acre lots above it, 3-acre lots below it, 3-acre lots in the communities around it. That's all I got
There's
to say.
also an issue with the streets.
Yes, the advantages of the 3-acre subdivisions is the streets are built to county standards, so those folks don't have problems with streets falling apart. And that's not a requirement for 5-acre developments anymore. So be it known.
All right, any other comment? If you wish to make a comment, I guess you have to come up and be, no? They can just yell from back there?
No, they're done. Public comment's over.
Public, you're right, public comment is over, I'm sorry. You already spoke, so we're finished with public comment. Any other questions from council? All right, so that bill will be up for final passage on the 31st, which is the next council meeting. The next bill then is 5063.
Bill number 5063, requested by Michael Horbert, sponsored by Joe Cronin, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A, agricultural district with floodway fringe overlay district to R1D, single-family residential district, and R1A, single-family residential district with floodway fringe overlay district per application RZ 22-06.
Any questions or comments or discussion?
Yeah, I believe Mr. Hughes
Wanted to speak, yeah.
Wanted to speak.
Yeah.
He gets to talk and I can't say anything else.
He's the applicant.
He asked to speak when the bill came up for discussion earlier. Okay. Yes, Mr. Hughes.
Yes, my name is Tom Hughes. I'm the owner of T.R. Hughes Homes, and our land development company is Charlestown Crossing, LLC. I know staff did their report to P&Z, and because of that, we did not use a PowerPoint presentation that we had prepared, because staff's report really informed P&Z, and I assume you all have the same packet. So I just wanted to give a little history of what we're trying to do. And again, there's been a lot of discussion about 3-acre, 5-acre density, one thing and another. Our company, and I agree with Mr. Hollander, I think it depends on where it's at in the county. We developed on Church Road in North St. Charles County, just in the last year, we developed 5-acre tracts because that was conducive to the area. Was surrounded by farmland, and we had absolutely no problem with that. This is different. This is adjacent. This 60 acres that we're asking to be rezoned is adjacent to a pretty high-density subdivision in the city of St. Paul that ultimately is going to have close to 700 homes in it, 676 to be exact. We developed that ground starting back in '05, and the city of St. Paul approved the original plan. Over the years, other parcels of ground that was adjacent to the original McMenemy property were added, and the development kept getting bigger. The county did have a plan for growth in this area because Duckett Creek, we were the general contractor actually for Duckett Creek, who built an MBR sewer plant in the Red Barn, if you're familiar with Riverdale, ultimately to service over 900 homes. We built a water tower in St. Paul that would accommodate 2,000 homes. So in this particular area, St. Paul was on board with this type of development. They voted for it. They voted to add homes. They ultimately bought the water tower from us. And so since then, St. Paul's zoning is 1 acre. It's not 3, it's not 5. The city of St. Paul has a 1 acre zoning now. And we took this development, what we really wanted to do is just expand Riverdale, because it is, if not the best-selling community in St. Charles County, it's among the top 5 best-selling communities in St. Charles County. And what that tells me is that's where people want to live. They can afford, they like the houses, obviously, or they wouldn't buy it. They can afford the houses. And what we're proposing And again, if we were gonna develop this 60 acres in the same manner we developed Riverdale, we could have up to 180 lots on this property. St. Paul, they said our zoning's now 1 acre. We don't have the ability to change that, so we decided to stay in the county. The most dense county zoning would allow us to have 160 homes on this property, on this 60 acres. And we've had months and months and months of meetings with staff. We've had meetings with Councilman Cronin. We've met with the property owners in the adjacent area. And we've had several different plans that we've come up with trying to accommodate, and we're just not going to make everybody happy, but we've really tried our absolute best to accommodate the surrounding landowners and one thing and another. So what the plan that we have, that P&Z unanimously approved and that staff is recommending approval, has 102 lots. The north and the west is, those are 1 acre lots, which adjoins the Dyer Farm and the other, I think, I'm not sure the name on the west, I think it's Welling, I'm not sure, but, and then on the interior, rather than trying to develop the smallest lot that we could, we agreed to have lots equivalent to the lots in the enclave of Riverdale, which is the bigger lots and the more expensive homes in Riverdale. And what we really tried to do was make the compromise consistent with what the surrounding area was. So this literally, this property backs up to the backyards of existing Riverdale homes. Those lots are 90 feet wide. The lots that are backing up to those homes are 90 feet wide. Like I said, on the north and the west, they're 1 acre. And in the middle, they're not the smallest lot we could get. They're I think the average square footage on those lots, 12,000 square feet, I believe. So anyway, Duckett Creek has assured us that sanitary sewers are available. St. Paul has agreed to provide water to this development. The fire district has written a letter saying that they can service the area. And again, we've agreed to play. There was a concern that we could somehow come in after the fact and change our plan. I've lived in St. Charles for 50 years. I was a cop in St. Charles City for 21. Been building houses 25 years, and so that's not my nature or style to try to pull a fast one on anybody. So, but we have, just to try to appease everybody, we've agreed if and when we close on the property, that we've agreed to place a deed restriction on the 1 acre lots and on the minimum lots that are on the interior of this, so everybody can rest assured that we're not going to come in and change the plan. And we've agreed to make that a contingent on getting our final plat approved through the county. We would put that deed restriction on this property.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Hughes?
And again, I respect everybody's opinion that spoke against this. I understand 5 acres and 3 acres and all that. And again, this is adjoining a subdivision that's density is higher than what we're proposing, basically.
All right. Sorry to interrupt you.
And just lastly, and again, if everything in St. Charles County was 3 and 5 acres, we wouldn't be the fastest growing county in the state of Missouri. I mean, so I respect in certain areas, 5 acres, 3 acres. In this particular area, I think what we're asking for is over and above what we could have asked for. So, and I'm available to answer any questions anybody has.
Okay.
I guess for
Brazel had
Cronin, I'm going to have questions for Cronin. I don't know if Mr. Hughes. My question is 2 questions. Make a point. Being the fastest growing county in the state of Missouri isn't necessarily a badge of honor. I'll tell you that right now. It's just rolls over everything. And that's, so I don't know if people think that's a great thing, but it's really not.
I
Can't
love
keep
St.
up.
Charles County the way it is, sir.
Well, can't keep up with infrastructure, schools, it's a tax burden, it's a zero-sum game.
Is that a question?
No, but that was a comment. If St. Paul has a 1 acre lot size, why are you going with 10,000 square foot lots?
There's not 10,000 square foot
Well, they're
lots.
12,000.
No, they're 11,250, ranging up to an acre in the interior
Well, then
with
why
1
would
acre
you-
lots.
why would you
don't
go
you
with an
read the
acre?
packet and
Why
you'd
would you go with an
understand?
acre?
Look at the plan and read the packet. Maybe you will.
That's
Okay,
way too
when you got a second, I can go through this.
Mr. Cronin, this is in your district. Did you want to speak
Yes,
about it?
yes.
Yeah.
I've been working on this for months. I met with the St. Paul City Board many times. I've met with Chuck Gross at Duckett Creek Sewer District. I've talked to all the neighbors that were adjacent to this property, trying to come up with something that was suitable for everyone. That's the best we can get done. This thing has got 1 acre buffer all the way around, which is what they talk about in the master plan, okay? It's got deed restrictions on the center portion and the outer portion, so those lots won't get smaller, okay? Mrs. Dyer's comments about runoff, well taken, but we have pretty significant stormwater detention standards that they'll be imposed on this property. The existing tree line on Dyer Road, that was something we talked about a long time ago. Miss Morehouse brought that up, one of the neighbors, and those lines are going to be preserved along with the greenery on the Miss Morehouse's side. I would say the majority of the neighbors are good with it. Some people, for instance, to Scott Dyer's point, he said that I think the one at the planning and zoning meeting says it's tolerable. I'm not necessarily good with it. But Scott, you also said in the email that the area is starving for 1 acre lots, and this will provide some 1 acre lots in that area. So that being said, I can show you the previous plans for 180 homes or 140 homes, and then you can look at this one with buffering and a lot of benefits for the area. And let's face it, a lot of folks talk about, when I was on the board alderman of St. Paul, when the original Riverdale got approved, a lot of folks were very upset about that. But surprisingly, a heck of a lot of those folks, including Mr. Bauer's son, lives in that subdivision now. I also know people of my age that have health issues that are selling their homes on 3 and 5 acres to move to Riverdale. It's a nice subdivision. It's not the end of the world. And I think this enclave of Riverdale, I would tell people to look at those homes, because they're pretty nice homes, and that's what the product you're going to see at this development should it be approved.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this matter then will be up for final passage on the next meeting, which is the 31st. That concludes bills for introduction. I'm sorry, did you want to say something,
Yes,
Mr.? I'm sorry, I saw you move your arm.
Yeah.
I apologize.
What are the value of these homes that you're looking at? I mean,
We're in the enclave of Riverdale. The average price is probably $450,000. Some homes are $650,000, so in that range. The majority are $500,000 and $600,000.
yeah, so
These are
substantial size homes. So I've heard so much about this subdivision. I can tell you right now, I'm going to support it. I think it's a good plan, and I'm going to support it.
Let's be honest, some people don't want a lot of land to take care of. That's what I'm hearing from a lot of younger people. They don't want to mow the grass, but, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so then that will be up for final passage or final vote next meeting. Is there any action on tabled bills?
Actually, we have one more bill
you.
for introduction.
Oh,
Bill
I'm
number
sorry.
5064.
Excuse me. Okay. Bill number 5064.
Bill number 5064, requested by Steve Ellman and Kurt Friz, sponsored by Nancy Schneider. An ordinance authorizing the execution of an associate membership agreement by and between the St. Charles County Regional Drug Task Force and member law enforcement agencies not located in St. Charles County but seek to participate in the St. Charles County Regional Drug Task Force.
Could this be the only non-controversial item on the agenda today? Okay. Anyone want to make any comments about this? Okay, that'll be on for the next agenda as well. Any action on any tabled bills? Any announcements? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Oh, Mr. White.
Oh, excuse me, John. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask him one final question, and that was that.
Can you talk into your microphone?
Mr. Barr, I understand that you have one employee that's dedicated to scrubbing and cleaning up the voter rolls. Is that correct?
I have multiple employees who are responsible for updating the voter registration rules. I do have one in particular that has updated through the process to be more timely and even more accurate than we had in the past. You can almost tell us.
Okay, come on up.
I got a question for him too about that.
For Mr. Barr?
For Mr. Barr, the first one.
I thought we finished with Mr. Barr, but we're giving you a
Oh.
reprise, so.
Yeah,
okay.
we like you so much, we want you back. I just have a question.
Wait, I don't think John was finished.
Finish
John
his
was-
first.
John wasn't finished.
I apologize now for asking this earlier, because I didn't think of it then, but I do remember that you did have one employee that I know of that's scrubbing, that's his full-time job. So that's all I was asking. You have other people that's also doing that?
So, well, I have multiple clerks who's responsible for updating the voter registration rolls. I do have one person in particular who spends an inordinate amount of his time making sure that we have fully followed the NVRA Act of 1992 and processed all of the residency confirmation notices in a timely manner, to include the councilman from the 2nd, when he moved and failed to update his voter registration. We sent him multiple letters to finally get him to update his voter registration. So he is now, again, an active voter.
Do you find that there's an awful lot to do in that area?
Well, we typically have about 10% of our voter roll that is inactive, but when we have such a large turnover now, if you can make the entire county 5 acre more so that we can't have more voters, then obviously my job would be a lot easier. But because we have such a high turnover of people in our county, and people keep moving and keep getting old enough to vote and whatnot, it's a perpetual job to continue to update the voter registration rolls, as well as to follow up with people. So yeah, I do have one person who, anytime we find a sale within the assessor's database of this family moved, we will contact the other family that sold and said, hey, you've moved, update your voter registration. And we are very timely on a monthly basis of getting that information so that we can have as accurate of rolls as possible in our county.
Very good. All right, thank you.
If the Wentzville School Board wanted to have a recount and pay for a recount of that election, is that something that could be done at this stage, especially if the Secretary of State wanted to do it?
So there's a 30-day clock for election contests, which I think we just passed.
that, yeah.
And so I don't know if there is. Now, one of the things that was brought up is people running on a ticket. That's all well and good. People can't campaign with each other. That's all well and good. But voters get to vote for whoever they want. And there's some controversy because there were, in essence, 3 conservative candidates. The one who won, and then J.J. Sufco and Sandy Garber. For whatever reason, those 2 candidates, for whatever reason, split the conservative vote amongst them, whereas the other lady, Lysick, won.
Yeah.
Anyway, so people are like, oh, these people campaign together. I don't know, and I don't care. The ballot is the way the ballot was. The order was based on the random drawing that the Wentzville School District gave to me. How the voters choose to vote, that's their prerogative.
Yeah, I'm just curious. As far as the people bringing about the age of the voters, my mom lives in Wentzville in a large senior citizens community, and she's 93, and I can tell you those folks vote. Okay?
No, I looked at the data from last year, and the average age of the voter for the in-person voting of last April's election was 56.
Yeah.
And we had as many 80-year-olds voting as we did 18 and 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was more. It's been a while since I looked at the data. But yeah, it is, the municipal election, you're generally seeing the grandparents, not the parents, of school kids voting.
Yeah, she was a Rosita Riveter while my dad was fighting World War II, and she don't miss an election for nothing, probably until we put her in the ground. So there you go.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Barr. Okay, is there a motion then to?
Motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry.
Oh, did you have something?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little hard of hearing. You have to like yell at me if you want.